Okay, this is about to be probably a fan favorite here at Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. It's the beginning of our series called Lee's Escape. And this is going to be Lee's Escape Part 1. And it's going to trace the escape route of General Lee and his army out of Gettysburg on July 4th, 1863. We're going to begin here at the Sox Mill Bridge, or the Sox Covered Bridge, here in Gettysburg. This was a partial escape route, and I'm going to have to do like a Part 1A and Part 1B because there are other points of starting where General Lee escaped, but this is going to be one of the more scenic and one of my favorites. So we're going to make this Part 1, Lee's Escape. As General Lee gave the order to retreat in the direction of Hagerstown, Maryland, on July 4th, his army began to pack up their wagons and head out of town. And one of the areas, especially on the southern end of the battlefield, on the Confederate right, which was basically comprised of both Barksdale and Hood's division, they passed this road here toward this gorgeous bridge, and we have a waterfall here, but this bridge here, which part of his army crossed over on their escape. So we're going to begin our video series here with the escape of General Lee, Lee's Escape Part 1, by crossing and me taking you over, or under, or through, rather, the Sox Covered Bridge. This is also part of the Covered Bridge tour in Pennsylvania. And I did do a video on the Sox Covered Bridge in the past, so you'll want to go back and watch that video. But for those of you that didn't see that video yet, I can give you a little bit of a background. This is probably the most historic covered bridge in Pennsylvania, being here in Gettysburg. It was built by David Stoner in 1852. It was used and crossed by both armies during the Battle of Gettysburg. But again, as in this video, it was crossed and used as the escape route for the Army of Northern Virginia. In it was 1996, on June 19th, this bridge was nearly destroyed when it was swept off its embankments down to where the dam is today from a large rainstorm. And it was rebuilt. It was raised a few feet off of the creek here, but it was rebuilt. Even up to the 1950s, car traffic was allowed to cross this bridge. It isn't anymore. It is subject to vandalism, and there are some stories about Confederate deserters being hung from the rafters of this bridge, which of course gives cause for some neat ghost stories. So we're going to walk through the bridge here. Now, when it was destroyed in 1996 and it was built back, 90% of the wood from the bridge was used. So this bridge has its structure. And of course, as we cross by, you will see there are a lot of graffiti and artwork on the wall. It's a good spot for fishermen. They like to come out here and fish, as you can see there in front of us. But General Lee, a part of General Lee's army, rather, northern Virginia, probably Hoods and Barksdales, crossed this bridge to escape Gettysburg, and then made a right here and went down Black Horse Tavern to the Black Horse Tavern area, where they met up with other troops that were escaping during the Fairfield Road. Now, I do want to make a mention that this field here in front of us and that barn that's in the distance over here, that is the original site of the movie Gettysburg filming from 1992, where myself, thousands of other reenactors, and then some pretty famous actors like Sam Elliott and Jeff Daniels and Stephen Lang, and many of the others in the film there spent months out here in these fields reenacting all different parts of the battle. Most of the movie was filmed here in front of us, and that barn that's over here in the distance is actually the barn that was used as a field hospital, Confederate field hospital, where Longstreet talks to his spy Harrison in the movie. And I did a video on that barn and my little scene in that barn, so you want to go back and watch that. Again, this has been part 1 of Lee's Escape here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Okay, we are here at, we're going to do a video now on Lee's Escape part 2, and most of this Lee's Escape I'm going to do via my car because of its distance. It's coming from Gettysburg. Now, we just came from the Sox Covered Bridge and made our way to this area right here. To our right is the Black Horse Tavern. And in front of us is the intersection of Black Horse Tavern and Fairfield Road. You want to go back and watch my video on the Black Horse Tavern to see the house itself and a little bit about this area. But the Confederate Retreat really begins where the Confederate Army meets here at the intersection of the Black Horse Tavern and Fairfield Road. Now, it was here that General Lee watched as all his Southerners that were wounded and weary began their retreat out of Gettysburg. And we're going to start driving west here on Route 116 now and talk a little bit about it as we go. Now, as Lee made his way from the battlefield on July 4th after the order was issued to retreat toward Hagerstown, they came from different spots on the battlefield, but they all basically went in this direction down what is now the Fairfield Road. And on this road, there were several, and still remain, existing homes, historic homes, that were used as field hospitals. And this road, not being nearly as wide as it is today, and at that time of the battle was a dirt road, as men who were wounded fell into death and died, as this huge 17-mile long wagon train of wounded and dying soldiers made its way in this direction. As men died, in order to keep the wagon train moving and not to have the inconvenience of carrying dead soldiers, many dead Confederate soldiers were buried alongside of the road that we're driving on right now. And though some were removed in 1872 during an expedition along this road, a lot of them were never found and never seen from again, and are probably still buried alongside of this road today. So that's something to keep in mind here on Lee's Escape Part 2, is that the roads, the modern roads that we drive on today out of the town of Gettysburg are often the grave sites of dead Confederate soldiers who were mortally wounded on July 1st, 2nd, or 3rd of 1863 during the 3 days battle, and died escaping Gettysburg on July 4th, overcrowded in these 17-mile long wagon trains. We're going to do this. We're going to pass through the town of Fairfield in our next video, but this has been part 2 of Lee's Escape here. And as this field on our right-hand side was actually the site of the David Stewart Farm, which was also a Civil War hospital. Like I said, a lot of historic homes along this route still exist to this day. This has been part 2 of Lee's Escape on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Okay, this is Lee's Escape part 3. We just left the Bream's Black Horse Tavern, and we're heading west on Route 116. We went about 4.5 miles, and we're entering the town of Fairfield, PA. Now, Fairfield, PA is also a very historic town, and as Lee's troops made their way away from Gettysburg and passed over Marsh Creek and Middle Creek heading into Fairfield, Meade decided that he would follow cautiously as Lee made his escape, hearing, of course, now that Lee is leaving. At this time, the Battle of Gettysburg officially becomes a Union victory. Lee has left the field, he has taken on more casualties, than the Union Army, and they've abandoned the field of battle. So this has been a genuine celebration on July 4th, 1863, Independence Day, as a victory comes to the Federal Army for the first time in a long, long time in a major important battle. Now this is the historic town. On July 6th, that there was a church we just passed, and of course up here is the historic 1757 Fairfield Inn, which was also part of Lee's escape route. But the church that we just passed up the road was actually used as a field hospital for Confederates on July 6, 1863. And again, this is going to be a little bit tougher of a video because I'm trying to point out things as I'm driving in my car. I have my camera here mounted on a mount on my dash. I'll do the best I can to take care of that, and also it's raining, so that's creating a problem too, which is very cool because when Lee escaped and the Battle of Gettysburg was over, it began to rain. So kind of historically, we're kind of probably looking at some similar conditions, maybe not as heavy of a rain, but rain nonetheless. Now, when you leave, if you decide to do this, when you leave Gettysburg at the Black Horse Tavern, you're going to drive approximately 6.5 miles west on Route 116, and you're going to make a right onto Iron Springs Road, and that will be our next stop. That will be part 4. This has been part 3 of Lee's escape on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Okay, this is part 4 of Lee's escape on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. We're turning here onto Iron Springs Road. We just came off Fairfield Road. Now on our immediate right, in front of us you can see the mountain here, and on our immediate right is the narrow Fairfield Gap. Now, even though it's less than 100 yards wide, Confederates from the 11th Mississippi defended this spot against the 8th Illinois Cavalry in a small skirmish, and one of the first small skirmishes after the Battle of Gettysburg. As Confederates retreated and their wagon trains made their way westward, and now Meade, finding out that Lee is escaping, starts to chase them. Of course, by horseback, members of the 8th Illinois Cavalry meet up with the 11th Mississippi, who's now fighting a rear guard action of defense in this area right here. And actually, it's a victory by the 11th Mississippi. The 8th Illinois Cavalry on horseback is unable to knock them out of position or get to the rear of the wagon train. So they cautiously retreat and then get word back to the Union Army. And from this point on, Meade doesn't go on an offensive. He goes on a more of a cautious attack and see type of plan. So this is part 4 of Lee's escape from Gettysburg on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.